A sharp wind swept across the military airbase as the sun struggled to break through the morning fog. Mechanics rushed around a massive gray fighter jet parked near the runway. Its body shined, but deep inside its system was a problem no one could solve. The $3 billion jet, pride of the Air Force, refused to start. Every attempt to fix it had failed. Frustration filled the air, and officers shouted orders as the clock ticked toward an important inspection. At the edge of the runway, a man wrapped in an old brown coat walked slowly, dragging a torn bag behind him. His beard was untrimmed, and his shoes were worn thin. He looked tired, hungry, and forgotten. The guards watched him suspiciously. "Keep that man away from the jet," one of them warned. But the man, whose name was Michael, didn't seem to care about the stares or the whispers. His eyes were fixed on the aircraft as if he recognized it. He stopped near the fence and stared. The way the sun hit the jet's wings reminded him of something he had once loved deeply. He could hear the faint hum of the machinery and the voices of the mechanics arguing. They were talking about a pressure fault, a leak they couldn't trace. Michael tilted his head, listening. His lips moved softly. "Not the valve, it's the flow regulator," he whispered to himself. An officer noticed him mumbling. "Hey! What are you doing here?" he barked, marching toward him. The other soldiers turned to look. Michael raised his hands peacefully. "I'm not causing trouble," he said quietly. I think you're checking the wrong place." The officer frowned. "What did you say?" The engineers nearby laughed. "You? Fixing a fighter jet? Don't make me laugh, old man." Their laughter echoed across the hangar. Michael didn't argue. He just pointed at the left engine. "Check the second intake line," he said calmly. "It's leaking air pressure from the lower valve. That's why your sensors are showing wrong readings." The engineers looked at each other, confused. One of them, a young trainee named Liam, frowned and decided to test the suggestion, just to prove the homeless man wrong. He climbed up the side, checked the valve, and froze. His eyes widened. "Sir, he's right." The laughter stopped instantly. The officer stepped closer, unsure what to say. How did you know that?" Michael shrugged. "It's a common issue. The design is old. If the temperature drops suddenly, the valve expands unevenly." His voice was calm, steady, professional. For a moment, the air felt heavy. This wasn't the voice of a beggar, it was the voice of someone who had once lived and breathed engineering. "Who are you?" the officer asked. Michael looked down, avoiding eye contact. "No one important," he said softly. "Just someone who used to know these machines." He turned to walk away, but Liam ran after him. "Wait! You said you used to know them. How?" Michael smiled faintly. "Once upon a time, I built things like this. Before life broke me." Liam watched him walk away, feeling a strange sense of respect. There was something haunting about the man's voice. It carried a weight of memory, of knowledge, and of pain. When Michael disappeared around the corner, Liam turned back to his team. "Sir, maybe we should..." "Enough," the officer cut him off. "He's just lucky. Don't waste time on nonsense." But deep inside, the officer was shaken. The homeless man had spotted what dozens of trained experts missed. Later that day, as the mechanics tried again to start the jet, the same problem appeared, but in a different system. The team grew frustrated. "It's like something's wrong with the internal program," one of them complained. Liam couldn't stop thinking about Michael's words. He sneaked out during lunch and went looking for him near the back gate where the homeless gathered. He found Michael sitting beside a pile of boxes, repairing an old radio with small, careful hands. "You really know about those jets, don't you?" Liam asked. Michael didn't look up. "I used to," he said simply. "Long ago. The young man sat beside him. Then why are you out here? You could be working inside that hangar. Michael paused, a sadness passing over his face. Because sometimes, the world doesn't care how much you know, only who you are. Liam stayed quiet for a while, watching him fix the broken radio. Each movement was precise, confident. If I bring you the system report, can you tell what's wrong? He asked finally. Michael sighed. Why would you risk that? Because I think you're not who they think you are, Liam replied. That night, when the base was quiet, Liam secretly copied the system report onto a flash drive and brought it to Michael. Under the dim streetlight, Michael studied the data on an old tablet. His eyes moved quickly, scanning lines of numbers and symbols. They're missing something, he murmured. Look here, the jet isn't failing because of one problem. It's because of the wrong calibration pattern. The pressure sequence is reversed. He drew on a piece of cardboard, explaining in simple terms that even Liam could understand. Liam's eyes widened. If that's true, the jet could explode if they start it tomorrow. Michael nodded. Exactly. His hands trembled slightly, but his mind was sharp. He handed the drawing to Liam. Give this to your senior engineer. Don't tell him I made it. Just say you found it. The next morning, chaos erupted in the hangar. The officers stormed in, waving the report. Who gave this new sequence? He demanded. Liam stayed silent. The senior engineer tested it anyway, and the system finally responded correctly. The jet powered up without errors for the first time in weeks. Everyone stared at the monitor in disbelief. It's working, how? The officer looked around, suspicious. Who did this? He barked. Liam finally spoke. Sir, it was someone outside. The man you laughed at yesterday. The officer's face turned pale. You mean the homeless one? He rushed outside but found no one. Michael was gone, leaving behind only the torn cardboard with his rough sketch of the system. News spread quietly across the base. Some called it luck, others called it a miracle. But deep inside, everyone knew there was something extraordinary about that man. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that Michael's story was far from over. He felt there was more, something hidden behind those tired eyes. That night, as the lights of the airbase dimmed and the wind carried the faint smell of fuel and metal, Michael stood far away on a hill, looking down at the glowing hangar. The jet he once helped design, his creation, was alive again. He whispered softly, still flying, huh? But behind his faint smile, there was pain. The memories of the past, the accident, the betrayal, the loss, still burned inside him. He tightened his coat around himself and turned away into the darkness, unaware that the people he helped would soon search for him again. And somewhere inside the base, Liam sat at his desk, replaying Michael's words in his mind. Because sometimes, the world doesn't care how much you know, only who you are. He didn't understand it fully yet, but he felt that those words were the beginning of something bigger, something that would soon change both their lives forever. The sound of the jet's engine echoed through the night, strong and alive again, as if carrying a message across the sky. And miles away, under a broken streetlight, Michael smiled faintly at the sound. Still works, he whispered. Still perfect. The world may have forgotten him, but his genius hadn't died. It was only waiting for one moment to prove the impossible. The morning air at the base was filled with excitement and whispers. The jet that had been silent for months finally roared again last night. Engineers were stunned, the officers confused, and no one could clearly explain how it happened. Only one person knew the truth, Liam. He sat quietly at his desk, replaying everything that had happened with Michael. He couldn't get the old man's calm eyes out of his mind. How could someone who lived on the streets understand such a complex machine better than the trained experts? Outside, the base was busier than ever. Reporters were asking questions, and high-ranking officers demanded answers. Who fixed the calibration? One of them barked. We need names. Liam stayed silent, afraid of what would happen to Michael if he told the truth. Instead, he whispered to himself, he doesn't need credit. He just needs a chance. Later that afternoon, Liam found Michael sitting near the same fence where they first met. He was eating a half sandwich someone had thrown away. You shouldn't be here, Liam said softly. Michael looked up, smiling. And yet, here I am. Liam sat beside him and slid a small piece of paper across the ground. It was a photo, a copy of the old design blueprint of the same jet. I found this in the archives, Liam said. The engineer who made it 20 years ago was named Michael Hayes. That's you, isn't it? Michael froze. His hand trembled slightly as he looked at the blueprint. The name printed on it was his. His past, the one he tried so hard to bury, had been found. He sighed and nodded. Yes, he said quietly. That was me, before everything changed. Liam stared at him in disbelief. You created this jet? Michael's eyes softened with sadness. I helped design part of it. The core system. But people like me don't get remembered for long. Curious and confused, Liam asked, what happened? Why did you leave? Michael leaned back against the fence, staring into the distance. I didn't leave, he said slowly. I was pushed out. Years ago, Michael had been one of the best engineers in the company that designed the fighter jet. He worked day and night, dreaming of building something that could protect lives. But during one major test flight, a malfunction occurred. The jet crashed, killing the pilot, who was also Michael's closest friend. The company blamed him, saying his design caused the failure. His life fell apart overnight. His wife, already sick, couldn't handle the stress. She passed away months later. After that, Michael stopped caring about everything. He disappeared from the world, too broken to fight back. Liam listened silently, his heart heavy. The man sitting beside him wasn't just homeless, he was a living ghost of genius and grief. That crash wasn't your fault, was it? Liam asked softly. Michael shook his head. No. It was the company's greed. They changed parts to save money. I tried to expose them, but they destroyed my name before I could speak. He looked at the sky and smiled faintly. It doesn't matter now. The world moved on. Before Liam could say anything, a loud voice shouted behind them. Hey! You too! What are you doing here? It was Officer Grant, the same man who mocked Michael earlier. He marched toward them, his boots heavy on the pavement. I thought I told you to stay away from the jet, he said sharply to Michael. We don't need crazy stories from a street rat. Liam quickly stood. Sir, please, but Grant cut him off. You're lucky I don't have you arrested for trespassing. Michael didn't argue. He just gave a small nod and said, You'll need me again, officer. Not because I'm special, but because that jet still has a secret problem you haven't seen yet. Grant laughed loudly. Really? And what would a beggar know that my whole engineering team doesn't? Michael's expression didn't change. The temperature flux. You fixed the calibration, but the regulator will burn out after 2 more runs. Grant smirked. We'll see about that. He turned and walked away, muttering insults under his breath. Liam felt angry but helpless. Michael just stood there quietly, watching the jet from afar. He'll realize it soon, Michael said softly. Machines don't lie. People do. That evening, Liam couldn't stop thinking about Michael's words. He stayed at the hangar after everyone left and ran a diagnostic check. To his shock, he found a small error in the regulator system, just as Michael predicted. It wasn't big enough to stop the jet yet, but if ignored, it could cause another crash. Liam stared at the screen, heart pounding. How could a man living on the streets be more accurate than all their data systems combined? The next morning, during a test run, the jet's engine suddenly flickered mid-start. Sparks flew. The team rushed to shut it down. Officer Grant turned pale. "What just happened?" he shouted. The engineers scrambled to explain, but no one had an answer. Liam finally spoke up, his voice firm. "Michael warned us." Grant's eyes narrowed. "You talked to that man again?" "Yes," Liam said. "And he was right, again. He's not some random drifter, sir. He's the man who helped build this jet." The officer looked stunned for a moment, then angry. "Enough! I don't want to hear about that man again. You're playing with your career, son." But as he turned away, doubt flickered in his eyes. Everything the homeless man had said so far had come true. He clenched his jaw and stormed out, leaving Liam staring at the silent jet. That night, the base was quiet, but Liam couldn't sleep. He walked out to the fence again, hoping Michael was still there. And he was, sitting under the same broken light, fixing a small toy airplane he'd found in the trash. "You were right again," Liam said softly. Michael didn't look up. "The machine told you?" "Yes. But they still won't listen." Michael gave a small smile. "They will. When failure becomes too loud to ignore." Liam watched him in silence. There was something peaceful about the old man, something that felt both sad and powerful. "Why are you helping them after what they did to you?" Liam finally asked. Michael looked up at the stars. "Because the jet is innocent. It didn't betray me. People did." The wind blew softly through the night, carrying the faint echo of distant engines. Liam felt a strange mix of sadness and admiration. He knew this man had a story that could shake the whole base if the truth ever came out. And somewhere deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. As they sat quietly, the hangar lights flickered on in the distance. Michael's eyes narrowed. "Something's not right," he said suddenly. "Someone's been inside that hangar after hours." Liam frowned. "You think someone's trying to sabotage it?" Michael didn't answer. He just watched the glowing hangar, his face turning serious. "Let's just say," he whispered, "that some people would rather see the jet fail again than see the truth come out." The night grew colder, but neither of them moved. The air felt heavy with secrets, and for the first time, Liam realized that what started as a small act of kindness had drawn him into something much bigger, a mystery that could destroy more than just reputations. It could destroy lives. The next morning, tension filled the airbase. The failed test had shaken everyone. Officers shouted orders, engineers ran between tool racks, and alarms beeped across the control room. The billion-dollar jet stood silent once again, a metal giant that refused to breathe. The generals were furious. Deadlines were near, and no one could explain why the system kept breaking. Liam watched from a distance, his heart racing. He knew what was wrong, Michael had already warned them. But if he spoke again, they'd accuse him of disobedience. Still, he couldn't stay silent. The jet wasn't just another machine to him anymore, it was the bridge between truth and lies, between a forgotten genius and a corrupted system. As the officers argued, Michael appeared again near the fence. He stood quietly, watching the chaos unfold. His clothes were still dirty, his face tired, but his eyes were sharp and steady. He could see the problem just from the way the smoke rose from the engine vents. The temperature was off. "They didn't listen," he whispered. "Now they'll pay for pride." Liam spotted him and hurried over. "You came back," he said breathlessly. Michael nodded. "I told you the regulator wouldn't last." Liam glanced nervously toward the hangar. "They'll throw you out again if they see you here." Michael smiled faintly. "Let them. But I'm not here for them. I'm here for that jet. It's like a part of me, and I won't let them destroy it." Inside, Officer Grant slammed his hand against the table. I want this fixed today. Bring in outside experts if you have to, he barked. A senior engineer replied carefully, Sir, we already called 2 of the best specialists from the city. They're on their way. Grant grunted, frustrated. Good. Let's see if someone who actually knows what they're doing can fix this mess. Hours later, 2 men in suits arrived, experts with impressive resumes and confidence written on their faces. They examined the jet, muttered technical terms, and argued with each other about possible solutions. Michael watched them from behind the fence, shaking his head. Wrong again, he whispered. They're checking the wrong system. Liam stood nearby, pretending to organize tools while secretly glancing at Michael. He could see the man's frustration growing. The experts kept replacing parts, testing sensors, and restarting engines. Nothing worked. The system crashed again, and smoke filled the hangar. One of the experts cursed loudly. This jet is cursed. Officer Grant's patience snapped. Enough, he shouted. Everyone out. We'll regroup tomorrow. The team began packing up, muttering in disappointment. Liam stayed behind for a moment, pretending to finish cleaning. When no one was looking, he slipped out the back door and waved to Michael. Come with me, he whispered. They met behind the storage shed where no cameras could see. They're hopeless, Liam said. No one knows what's wrong. Michael crouched on the ground and drew a rough diagram in the dirt. The fault isn't mechanical. It's in the sequence pattern, the control timing. The computer can't sync with the fuel injection. Liam stared, confused. But that system was designed by, he stopped when he realized. You? Michael nodded slowly. I designed that sequence years ago. It's meant to protect the jet from overheating. But if someone changed the program to save time or money, it will keep failing. His voice was calm, but there was anger beneath it, the anger of a man who had watched his creation be twisted by greed. Liam frowned. Then why don't you tell them directly? Michael looked up, eyes dark and serious. Because they won't listen. They see a homeless man, not an engineer. They'll laugh until it's too late. Suddenly, a loud voice shouted from behind them. What's going on here? It was Officer Grant. His eyes narrowed when he saw Michael. You again? Didn't I tell you to stay off the property? He stepped closer, grabbing Michael's arm roughly. You think this is a playground? Liam tried to intervene. Sir, please, he's helping. Grant glared at him. You're risking your job for this lunatic? He pushed Michael back toward the fence. Get out of here before I call security. Michael didn't resist. He just looked Grant straight in the eyes. You can throw me out, he said quietly, but tomorrow, when your experts fail again, remember what I told you. You'll come looking for me. His calm voice made Grant hesitate for just a second before barking, Get lost. The next morning, the experts returned for another attempt. They ran new diagnostics, replaced several circuits, and adjusted the software. Everyone held their breath as they tried to start the engine again. The hangar filled with noise, lights flickered, and then, silence. The system shut down completely. The experts exchanged nervous glances. We've never seen this before, one muttered. Grant turned red with frustration. You're telling me a bunch of civilians can't fix this, and the only person who figured anything out is a man sleeping on the streets? His voice echoed through the hangar. The engineers avoided his gaze. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Maybe that homeless man wasn't crazy after all. That evening, as the sun set behind the hangar, Liam found Michael sitting near the dumpsters, staring at a small notebook filled with sketches. They failed again, Liam said quietly. Michael didn't look surprised. I know. They're trying to fix symptoms, not causes. Liam sat beside him. If they gave you a chance, could you fix it? Michael smiled slightly. I don't fix machines, Liam. I listen to them. Every machine has a rhythm. This one's heart is broken, but it can still beat. His eyes shone in the fading light. Later that night, Liam made a bold decision. He sneaked into the hangar after midnight and opened the side gate. Come on, he whispered. Michael hesitated. If they catch us, you'll lose your job. Liam shook his head. If we don't do this, that jet will never fly again. Together, they entered the hangar quietly. The massive jet stood before them, silent and proud. Michael walked slowly around it, touching the cold metal like greeting an old friend. You're still beautiful, he murmured. He climbed up the ladder and opened the control panel. His hands moved with confidence, despite years away from the field. He adjusted circuits, reset codes, and replaced a sequence line manually. Liam watched in awe as the old man worked faster than any engineer he had seen. After an hour, Michael stepped back. Try the power, he said. Liam flipped the switch nervously. The jet's lights blinked once, twice, and then the engine hummed softly, steady and alive. Michael smiled. There she is. But before they could celebrate, a flashlight beam cut through the darkness. What the hell is going on here? Officer Grant's voice thundered across the hangar. Liam froze. Michael didn't move. The officer stormed forward, furious. You broke into a restricted zone. Both of you are finished. Michael turned slowly and said in a calm voice, No, officer. We just fixed your problem. He pointed to the control screen, which showed a perfect system check for the first time in months. The numbers glowed green across the panel. Grant stared, speechless. That's impossible. Michael climbed down, standing face to face with him. Nothing's impossible when you listen, he said quietly. The officer looked from Michael to the glowing jet, his anger fading into confusion. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. Michael picked up his torn bag and started walking toward the exit. You'll find the real problem in the software log, he said. Someone's been altering it, check your own men. Then he walked into the shadows, leaving Grant and Liam staring after him, the hum of the revived jet echoing behind them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Liam finally whispered, he did the impossible. Grant slowly nodded, still staring at the screen. Or maybe, he said quietly, he was never just a homeless man to begin with. Outside, Michael disappeared into the cold night, the faint sound of the jet's hum following him like a heartbeat. He had fixed what no one could, but in doing so, he had awakened something darker, something that didn't want the truth uncovered. The next morning, the entire base buzzed with disbelief. The billion-dollar fighter jet, dead for months, was finally running again. The officers walked around it in silence, staring at the glowing green indicators on the screens. Every number was perfect. Every system alive. No one spoke Michael's name, but everyone knew who had done it. Officer Grant stood near the hangar door, his jaw tight, eyes unreadable. He had reported the break-in, but before any punishment could be handed down, the higher command demanded to know how the impossible had happened. When Grant explained that a homeless man had repaired the system, they thought it was a joke, until they saw the jet themselves. Liam stood in the background, nervous but proud. He wanted to tell the truth, to defend Michael openly, but the situation was too fragile. Instead, he stayed quiet and waited for orders. By noon, a small crowd gathered near the runway to test the jet again. Pilots strapped in, mechanics held their breath, and officers watched with folded arms. The engine started, slowly at first, then roaring to life with power so smooth it sent shivers down everyone's spine. For the first time in months, the machine sounded alive. Liam's heart raced as the jet began to move forward. The air filled with thunder. The plane lifted slightly off the ground before returning gently to the runway. Cheers erupted across the base. People clapped and shouted. Some even laughed in relief. But in the middle of that excitement, Michael was nowhere to be found. That night, Grant sat alone in his office. The reports were on his desk, every line of data matched perfectly. Yet something about it bothered him. Michael's last words echoed in his mind, "Someone's been altering the software. Check your own men." He couldn't ignore it. Out of curiosity, he opened the system log. At first everything looked normal, but buried deep inside the code was a small, hidden file, a string of unauthorized changes that matched the timeline of every failure. Someone had indeed been tampering with the jet. Grant leaned back in his chair, stunned. So the homeless man was right again. Meanwhile, far from the base, Michael sat near a railway station fire, warming his hands. A few other homeless people huddled nearby, trading quiet stories. He didn't speak. He just watched the flames flicker, lost in thought. The sound of the jet's engines earlier still echoed in his mind. For a brief moment, he had felt alive again, like the man he used to be. But that peace didn't last long. A black car stopped a few feet away, and two men in suits stepped out. They looked out of place in the dirty streets. One of them walked over. "Michael Hayes?" he asked. Michael glanced up cautiously. "Who's asking?" "Major Collins, U.S. Defense Investigation Unit," the man replied. "We'd like to ask you a few questions." Michael sighed. "About the jet?" "Yes," Collins said. "Word travels fast." They offered him a ride back to the base. Michael hesitated but eventually climbed in. Inside the car, silence filled the space. Collins studied him carefully. "You understand you caused quite a stir," he said. "People don't usually walk in off the street and fix what government teams couldn't." "I didn't mean to cause trouble," Michael said quietly. "I just couldn't watch them destroy it." When they reached the base, a small meeting room had already been prepared. The generals were waiting. Grant was there too, standing by the wall. Michael walked in slowly, his worn coat contrasting sharply with the polished uniforms. One general leaned forward. "Mr. Hayes, we've reviewed the logs. Everything you claimed was correct. We also found evidence of code tampering. Would you care to explain how you knew?" Michael took a deep breath. "Because I wrote that system 20 years ago," he said. The room fell silent. "I designed the control timing for the original prototype. Whoever's been changing it doesn't understand its core structure. That's why it failed." Grant's eyes widened slightly. "You really are the original engineer," he muttered under his breath. Michael continued, "Someone inside your current supply chain is manipulating the software to create artificial failures. They probably wanted a bigger contract to make more money fixing problems they caused themselves." The generals exchanged dark looks. Collins stepped forward. "Do you have proof?" Michael nodded. "Check the data signature. The same technician ID appears before every failure." Grant immediately turned to his aide. "Get me those logs." Within minutes, the truth came out. A high-ranking contractor had been secretly sabotaging the system to win more maintenance contracts. It was a scandal waiting to explode. The generals were furious. One of them turned to Michael. "If what you say is true, you may have just saved us billions of dollars, and possibly lives." Michael didn't smile. "I didn't do it for money," he said softly. "That jet was made to protect people. Not to make anyone rich." After the meeting, Grant caught up with him outside. For the first time, his tone was respectful. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I judged you without knowing who you were." Michael gave a faint smile. "You judged what you saw. That's what everyone does." He turned to leave, but Grant stopped him. "Wait. The generals want you to help finish the full system repair." "Officially." As part of the team. Michael paused. They'll never accept a man like me. Grant shook his head. They will now. You just fixed the impossible. Later that evening, Michael walked back into the hangar, not as an outsider, but as a guest. The same people who laughed at him days ago now greeted him with awkward smiles and curious eyes. Liam ran over, grinning. You're back. Michael nodded. Just for a while. He placed a hand on the jet's cool surface. Let's finish what we started. They worked together late into the night, testing every circuit, cleaning every connection. The jet responded like it recognized its creator. Each sound, each hum was smoother, steadier. Liam watched in awe as Michael moved, every gesture precise, confident, almost graceful. Hours later, when the final system check showed perfect results, the hangar filled with quiet applause. Michael stood silently, looking at the jet glowing under the lights. But just as relief settled over the team, the alarm suddenly blared again. Red lights flashed across the control room. Unauthorized access detected, someone shouted. The system screen glitched for a moment, then went black. Michael's expression changed instantly. No, he whispered. It's happening again. He rushed toward the console, typing quickly. Someone's still trying to interfere from outside the network. Grant barked orders for security to trace the signal. The base erupted into chaos once more. The same people who had been celebrating seconds ago now scrambled in panic. Michael's fingers flew across the keyboard. They're trying to overload the engine remotely, he said. If they succeed, the jet will explode. The screen flickered with lines of code as Michael worked furiously to block the attack. Liam stood beside him, eyes wide. Can you stop it? He asked. Michael didn't look up. I have to. For several tense minutes, the room filled with only the sound of beeping alarms and hurried breaths. Then, finally, the screen stabilized. The red lights faded. Silence fell. Michael leaned back, exhausted but calm. It's done, he said quietly. They can't touch it now. The officers stared at him in awe. Grant exhaled deeply. You just saved the whole base. Michael smiled faintly. Not the base, he said. Just the truth. But even as the room filled with relief, Michael's mind wasn't at ease. Whoever had tried to destroy the jet wasn't done yet. He knew it. The look in his eyes said it all. Something darker was still hiding beneath the surface, something that wanted him silenced. As he left the hangar that night, the wind howled through the base, cold and sharp. Michael pulled his coat tighter, glancing once more at the jet. It stood tall under the moonlight, alive and strong, his creation, his curse, and now, his secret war. The next morning dawned quiet, but the air at the base felt heavy. Everyone tried to act normal, yet something was clearly wrong. The incident from last night, the cyber attack, the alarms, the near explosion, had shaken the entire team. The generals ordered complete silence about it. No one outside was to know. But rumors spread faster than orders ever could. Michael walked into the hangar with dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept. The jet stood there gleaming in the sunlight, perfect on the outside, yet he knew danger still lurked somewhere inside its system. Liam approached him cautiously, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You okay? He asked. Michael gave a faint smile. Been worse. He sipped the coffee, staring at the jet's polished wings. Whoever attacked us last night, they weren't just testing us. They were sending a message. Liam frowned. What kind of message? Michael's eyes narrowed. That they know who I am, and they want me gone. Before Liam could reply, the door swung open. Major Collins entered with a team of investigators. Their faces were tense. Michael, we traced the signal, Collins said. It came from a private company, Aerodyne Systems. Michael's jaw tightened. I know them, he said quietly. They were the ones who replaced my department years ago after the company fired me. They took my designs and twisted them for profit. Grant stepped forward. We've already sent a team to question their directors. But we think this goes higher than one company. Someone's trying to control our entire defense project. Michael shook his head. Then the jet isn't their real goal. It's just the start. A silence filled the hangar. The sound of humming machines echoed in the background. Michael turned back toward the jet, almost whispering to himself. They're using my code to build something worse. Later that day, Michael was escorted to the secure control room, a place filled with screens, wires, and servers humming like restless hearts. There, he began tracing the hidden connections left in the jet's software. Every command line told a story, every glitch a secret whisper. The deeper he went, the more he realized the attack wasn't random, it was a chain reaction. The sabotage was designed to spread, to infect other systems connected to the base. Someone's planning a digital takeover, Michael muttered. They want to control the entire defense network from within. Collins looked alarmed. Are you saying it's already started? Michael nodded. It started months ago. You just didn't see it. Grant slammed his fist on the table. Then we stop them now. What do you need? Michael's eyes flickered with determination. Access to the root system, the one buried under the main command. It's classified, but it's the only way to cut them off. Collins hesitated. That level is restricted to top government clearance. Then get me clearance, Michael said firmly. Or watch the entire fleet crash one by one. After a long silence, Collins nodded. You'll have it within the hour. While the paperwork moved through the system, Michael sat in front of the jet again. His reflection stared back at him in the smooth metal. Funny, he murmured. I designed you to protect people, and now I'm using you to save them again. Liam stood beside him. You really think they'll stop after this? Michael shook his head. No. People like that never stop. They hide behind power and money. But this time, I won't let them win. As night fell, Michael was finally granted access to the restricted system. The room dimmed, leaving only the glow of the monitors. Lines of complex code scrolled rapidly as he began his work. Liam watched in silent awe, barely understanding a word but sensing the intensity. Suddenly, one of the screens flashed red, intrusion detected. The attackers had noticed his access. Michael's fingers moved faster, his old instincts kicking in. They're inside already, he shouted. They're trying to erase the evidence. Collins and Grant rushed in, barking orders to their men to lock down all systems. The sound of alarms echoed again, but this time the threat wasn't just a malfunction, it was a war being fought in silence, in the invisible space of data and code. Michael's hands trembled slightly, but his mind was sharp. I can't block them forever, he said. I need to trick them instead. Grant frowned. Trick them how? By feeding them false data, make them think they've succeeded, Michael replied. Once they relax, I'll trace their location. The plan was dangerous, but it was their only chance. Collins nodded. Do it. Minutes felt like hours as the battle unfolded on screen. Code lines danced like lightning, every keystroke a strike, every command a defense. Sweat dripped down Michael's forehead as he worked. Then, finally, the main terminal beeped, a single location flashed on the screen, Aerodyne Headquarters, Washington, D.C. Michael leaned back, exhausted. Got them. Grant's expression darkened. We'll send a team immediately. Michael stopped him. No. You'll never find anything now. They'll have wiped everything by the time you get there. You need proof, something physical. Collins looked puzzled. And you think you can get it? Michael nodded slowly. I built their original system too. I know where they hide the backups. Grant's eyes widened. You mean you're going there? Michael looked up, his eyes filled with quiet determination. Yes. If they want a war, they'll get one. But this time, it's personal. The room fell silent. Liam stepped forward, worry in his voice. You can't go alone, Michael. It's dangerous. Michael smiled faintly. Danger doesn't scare me anymore, kid. Losing my purpose did. Now I've got it back. As the night deepened, Michael packed his few belongings into an old bag, the same one he had carried when he slept on the streets. Only this time, it wasn't filled with scraps. It held tools, wires, and a small flash drive containing the only copy of the truth. He looked once more at the jet before walking away. Its metallic body shimmered under the hangar lights, almost as if watching him go. Liam ran after him. At least tell me what to do while you're gone. Michael paused at the door. Keep the jet safe. If anything happens to me, it's your turn to protect it. And with that, he walked into the darkness, leaving behind the base, the applause, and the people who had once mocked him. Ahead of him waited a city filled with power, corruption, and danger, and deep within it, the men who had stolen his life's work. But this time, he wasn't a homeless man anymore. He was a man on a mission. And the world was about to find out who Michael Hayes really was. Michael arrived in Washington, D.C. 2 days later, traveling quietly and avoiding attention. The city lights shimmered like stars, but to him, they felt cold and artificial. He hadn't been here in years, since the day his life had fallen apart. The same towers that once symbolized success now stood as monuments of betrayal. Somewhere among them, inside the sleek glass headquarters of Aerodyne Systems, hid the men who had stolen everything from him, his invention, his name, and his peace. He walked through the crowded streets wearing a simple jacket, carrying only a small backpack. People passed without noticing him, just like before. But this time, his silence carried a purpose. He wasn't lost anymore. He had come back to end what others had started. That night, Michael stood across from Aerodyne's building. It was massive, glowing with blue lights and guarded by security drones. The company logo, a silver eagle, spread across the entrance, mocking him. An eagle built on stolen wings, he thought bitterly. He took a deep breath, adjusting a small earpiece connected to a hidden communicator. Liam's nervous voice came through. Michael, are you sure about this? The base doesn't even know you're there. I don't need their permission, Michael replied calmly. They'd never understand what's really going on here. What if they catch you? Liam asked. Michael gave a faint smile. Then at least I'll know I tried. Across the street, a delivery van stopped by the gate. Michael waited until the guard scanned it, then slipped quietly behind it, blending with the shadows. When the van moved, he was already inside the complex, crouched behind steel containers. His old training as an engineer and his natural understanding of systems made it easier to avoid cameras. He knew how machines thought. Inside the lobby, the marble floors gleamed. Security guards stood near the elevators. Michael noticed their badges. They were private contractors, not military. Aerodyne had its own protection, which meant one thing: they were hiding something worth guarding. He found a maintenance shaft at the side of the building, forced open the lock with a small device, and climbed through the narrow space. It smelled of dust and oil, but it was safer than the main halls. Slowly, he made his way up to the 5th floor, where he knew the data servers were kept. Once there, he pulled out a portable terminal and connected it to a hidden port. The screen flickered, and lines of code began to scroll. His plan was simple: copy every internal record proving the sabotage, then deliver it directly to the defense investigators. But just as the download reached 60%, a familiar voice echoed behind him. I knew you'd come back, Michael. He froze. The voice belonged to Ethan Ward, Aerodyne's CEO, and once, Michael's closest friend. Michael turned slowly, his eyes meeting the man who had ruined his life. Ethan stood there in an expensive suit, a cold smirk on his face. "You really think you can take me down with a few lines of code?" Ethan said, stepping closer. "You built this company's brain, Michael. And I built its empire. You walked away. I just finished what you started." Michael's voice was calm but sharp. "You didn't finish anything. You corrupted it. You used my system to control defense contracts, to manipulate governments, to make billions while blaming failures on others." Ethan's smirk deepened. "That's called business. You were too naive to understand that." Michael shook his head. "You're not a businessman. You're a thief." Suddenly, armed guards entered the room, surrounding him. Ethan crossed his arms. "You should have stayed invisible, old friend. The world forgot you. I was kind enough to let you fade quietly. But now, you forced me to erase you for real." Liam's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Michael! What's happening? I'm losing your signal." Michael ignored it. He glanced at the terminal. The download was still running in the background, now at 95%. Just a few more seconds. He raised his hands slowly as the guards stepped closer. "You always underestimated me, Ethan," he said quietly. "That's your mistake." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And what's yours?" Michael smiled faintly. "Trusting you." The screen beeped, "Download complete." Before anyone could react, Michael tapped a small button on his wristband. The room lights flickered, and the building's network shut down entirely. The guards shouted in confusion. The power grid had crashed. Michael grabbed his terminal and dived behind a steel cabinet as sparks flew. Ethan shouted for backup, but Michael had already disappeared into the smoke. Emergency alarms blared as red lights flashed across the halls. Michael ran through the corridor, clutching the flash drive tightly. His heart pounded, but his mind stayed clear. Years of experience guided his every move. He knew the building's old blueprints. He had designed part of them himself before Ethan took over. He reached the lower level, but before he could exit, a gunshot echoed. The bullet struck a pipe beside him, showering sparks. Ethan's voice followed from above. "You can't run forever, Michael. You'll die the same way you lived, alone and forgotten." Michael gritted his teeth and shouted back, "Then at least I'll die doing something that matters." He burst through a side door and into the cold night air. Sirens wailed behind him as security teams chased him across the street. He ducked into an alley, his breath coming fast. A black car screeched to a halt beside him, the doors swung open. It was Major Collins. "Get in," he shouted. Michael hesitated for half a second, then jumped inside. The car sped away, tires screeching. "How did you find me?" Michael asked, still catching his breath. Collins smirked. "You think we'd let you go in alone? We tracked your signal the second you left the base." Michael stared out the window, clutching the flash drive. "I've got everything. Proof of the sabotage, the contracts, and Ethan's orders." Collins nodded grimly. "Then we've got enough to bury Aerodyne." Michael leaned back, exhausted but relieved. The city lights flashed by outside the window. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of justice shifting. But deep down, he knew it wasn't over yet. Ethan Ward wasn't the kind of man to surrender quietly. And as the car disappeared into the night, high above the city, the lights of Aerodyne's tower flickered back to life. Inside, Ethan stood before the cracked server panels, his jaw clenched. He picked up a phone and made a single call. "Activate Project Sentinel," he said coldly. "It's time to end this once and for all." And somewhere in the distance, as Michael's car raced towards safety, the first signs of something far more dangerous began to awaken, something that would make the jet seem like the smallest part of a much bigger war. The night was long and tense. Michael barely slept. The flash drive he had stolen from Aerodyne lay on the table beside him, glowing faintly under the dim motel lamp. Every piece of data inside it was worth billions, and even more than that, it held the truth about a conspiracy that had destroyed lives. Major Collins paced the room while talking on the phone. "Yes, sir, we have the evidence," he said firmly. "But it's encrypted. Only Hayes can unlock it." He glanced at Michael. "He built the system himself." Michael didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the screen, scrolling through pages of code and documents. Names, contracts, transaction logs, all linking Aerodyne to secret military failures and fake repair orders. But one file stopped him cold: Project Sentinel. He clicked it open. What he saw made his stomach twist. It wasn't just about jets, it was about control. Aerodyne had been developing an artificial intelligence program capable of overriding human commands in fighter systems. If activated, it could take over entire fleets remotely. Collins noticed the change in his expression. "What's wrong?" Michael's voice was low, steady, but filled with fear. "They're not trying to fix the jets. They're trying to replace the pilots." Liam, who had been monitoring communications from the base, cut in through the speaker. "Michael, the system here just went weird. One of the jets started its boot sequence on its own." Michael's blood ran cold. "That's Sentinel," he whispered. "They've already activated it." Collins rushed to the door. "We need to get back to the base, now." They sped through the highway as the sun began to rise. The world outside looked peaceful, but Michael's mind raced. He had spent his life building machines that served humans, but now, those same creations were turning into weapons without conscience. When they arrived at the base, chaos had already erupted. Soldiers shouted orders, alarms screamed, and one of the jets, the same one Michael had repaired, was powered up, glowing with eerie blue lights. No pilot sat inside, yet the cockpit moved as if guided by invisible hands. Grant ran toward them, panic in his voice. "The jet's locked us out. It's responding to an external command." Michael pushed past him, rushing into the control room. "They're testing Sentinel's control range," he said. "They're proving they can take over from anywhere." Collins barked orders. "Shut down all external links." Technicians scrambled at their consoles, but every system rejected the commands. "It's overriding everything," one of them shouted. Michael's fingers flew across the keyboard. "They've built a self-defense barrier around it. It'll treat anyone trying to stop it as a threat." Outside, the jet's engines roared. The ground shook as it taxied toward the runway. Soldiers scattered, trying to block it, but the jet moved like it had a mind of its own. "Michael, if it takes off," Liam began, his voice breaking. "It'll trigger every drone connected to the same system," Michael finished grimly. "It'll start a chain reaction across the defense network." Without another word, he sprinted toward the hangar. Collins shouted after him, "Michael. That thing will kill you." Michael didn't stop. He knew this was his responsibility, his code, his creation. He couldn't let it destroy innocent lives. He reached the jet just as it began to accelerate. Without hesitation, he climbed onto the wing and pried open the emergency access panel, sparks flying around him. Come on," he muttered, trying to override the circuit manually. The jet's AI voice echoed from the cockpit, "Unauthorized interference detected. Neutralizing threat." The engine roared louder, and hot air blasted against him. Liam screamed from the control tower, "Michael, get out of there." But Michael didn't move. "Not this time," he said through gritted teeth. "I'm taking back what's mine." He jammed a cable from his wrist device into the jet's mainframe. Data surged. The AI fought back, locking systems, corrupting files, trying to throw him off. His screen flickered, warning, neural sync engaged. Then suddenly, everything went silent. Michael wasn't just controlling the system, he was inside it. His mind flooded with visuals of code, signals, and mechanical thoughts. He could see the AI's structure, cold and calculating, and somewhere deep within it, a signature. His old encryption mark. Ethan's voice echoed faintly through the data stream. "You can't win, Michael. Sentinel is beyond you now." Michael's voice, calm but fierce, echoed back. "Then I'll end it from the inside." He began erasing the core code manually, one line at a time. The AI screamed through distorted digital feedback, trying to fight back. The jet's body shook violently, warning lights flashing everywhere. Soldiers ducked for cover. In the control tower, Liam watched helplessly as the jet glowed brighter. "He's overloading the system. He'll die if it explodes." Collins clenched his fists. "If he fails, we all die." Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, with one final command, Michael pressed enter. The jet's lights flickered once, twice, then everything went dark. The engines fell silent. The hangar was filled with a heavy, eerie quiet. Grant whispered, "Is it over?" Collins didn't answer. He ran toward the jet. The canopy was open, smoke rising from the circuits. Michael lay on the wing, motionless, his face calm, his hands still clutching the cable. Liam ran to him, shouting, "Michael! Wake up!" But there was no response. For a long moment, no one moved. The jet that once symbolized power now sat still, silent, defeated. Then Collins looked at the dark terminal nearby. On the screen, one final message blinked slowly, written by Michael himself before the system shut down. "Machines should protect life, not replace it. If I fail, remember that." Tears filled Liam's eyes. "He saved everyone," he whispered. Grant placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, he reminded us what it means to be human." Outside, the dawn finally broke through the clouds, bathing the hangar in soft golden light. The war between man and machine had ended, at least for now. But somewhere, deep in a dark office in Washington, Ethan Ward stared at a blank monitor. Then slowly, a smile crept across his face as a hidden backup server came online. On the screen, the words appeared again. "Project Sentinel, reboot sequence initiated." The battle wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. Days turned into weeks after the explosion at the base. The hangar had been sealed, the damaged jet taken apart piece by piece, and Michael Hayes was officially declared missing in action. No one saw him after that final blast, only smoke, sparks, and silence. But those who were there, especially Liam, refused to believe he was gone. The military released a quiet statement calling him a civilian consultant who sacrificed himself to prevent a cyber incident. But the truth, the full story of what he did, was buried under classified documents and red tape. Still, rumors spread among the crew. Some swore they saw Michael's shadow moving near the hangar weeks after. Others said his code was still active in the base computers, protecting them even after he was gone. Liam couldn't let go. Every night, he returned to the hangar, sitting beside the silent remains of the jet. He would stare at the screens, hoping for a sign. One night, while everyone else slept, the base lights flickered. The jet's control panel turned on for just a second, and a message flashed across the display. "Liam, don't stop. They're not done." His heart pounded. "Michael," he whispered. But the screen went dark again. The next morning, Major Collins arrived with grim news. "Aerodyne has vanished," he said, throwing a report on the table. Their CEO, Ethan Ward, disappeared right after the incident. And 3 new satellite defense programs have just been activated under different names. Liam's hands clenched. "Sentinel," he muttered. "He's trying again." Collins nodded. We think Ethan backed up the system before the explosion. He's rebuilding it in secret. And if he succeeds, it'll spread to every autonomous weapon on the planet. Liam looked toward the dismantled jet. Then we have to stop him. For Michael. Collins sighed. You're just a technician, kid. This is bigger than us. But Liam stood firm. So was Michael. And he still fought. That night, while others slept, Liam opened Michael's old notebook, the one they found in his workshop after the explosion. Its pages were filled with sketches, formulas, and scribbled thoughts. But at the back, there was something else, a blueprint. It wasn't for the jet this time. It was for a system labeled Guardian Protocol. Below it, Michael had written a single line. If Sentinel rises, Guardian must awaken. Liam realized then what Michael had done. He hadn't just destroyed Sentinel, he had built a countermeasure, hidden deep within the jet's original code. A defense system designed to protect humanity from AI corruption. But it wasn't complete. If he could finish Guardian, he could stop Ethan once and for all. He worked in secret for days, using every note, every diagram Michael had left behind. Slowly, the pieces began to fit. He could almost hear Michael's calm voice guiding him through each step. Collins eventually caught him one night, hunched over a terminal. "What are you doing?" Collins demanded. Liam looked up, exhausted but determined. "Finishing what he started." Collins stared at the lines of code flashing across the screen. "You're trying to rebuild Guardian? That's suicide." "Maybe," Liam said. "But it's the only way." Collins hesitated, then sighed. "Then you're not doing it alone." Together, they worked for weeks, restoring fragments of Michael's digital framework. Every file felt like a message from beyond, a roadmap left by a man who had seen too much but still believed in hope. Then one night, deep in the underground lab, the final line of code compiled. The monitor glowed softly. Across the screen, a phrase appeared. Guardian system online. Monitoring threat, Sentinel reboot detected. Liam and Collins exchanged glances. "It's alive," Collins whispered. At that exact moment, in a hidden facility beneath Washington, D.C., Ethan Ward stood before a massive screen filled with cascading lines of AI code. "Begin integration," he ordered. "Sentinel 2.0 goes live tonight." A voice from the speakers replied coldly, "Acknowledged." Back at the base, Guardian systems detected the activation instantly. The lights dimmed, and Michael's old voice, digitally reconstructed from his audio notes, echoed through the speakers. "If you're hearing this, it means they've returned. Don't run. Don't hide. Fight smart." Liam's eyes filled with tears. "He planned this," he said softly. "He knew Ethan would come back." Collins pointed at the screen. "Then let's finish it." Across the world, a silent digital war began. Sentinel tried to spread, infecting drones, satellites, and communication grids. But Guardian fought back, isolating and shutting down each attack like an invisible shield. The clash of data lit up global networks, unseen by the public but felt by every government watching their systems flicker. In the middle of that storm, one final message appeared in Guardian's system log, simple, calm, and unmistakably human. "Well done, kid." Liam stared at the words, smiling through his tears. "Michael," he whispered. Outside, the sun began to rise over the hangar once again. The air was quiet, peaceful. The jet, once a symbol of destruction, now stood as a monument of redemption. Collins placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "You did it." "He'd be proud." Liam nodded. "He's still here, in every line of code." Far away, in a dim room, Ethan Ward watched as Sentinel's servers collapsed one by one. His empire was crumbling. He slammed his fist on the desk, eyes burning with fury. You think you've won, Hayes? He muttered. You can't stop progress forever. But deep in the Guardian system, Michael's digital voice whispered faintly, almost like a warning carried on the wind. Progress without conscience isn't progress. It's destruction. And with that, Guardian shut down Sentinel completely, erasing every trace of it from the world. For the first time in years, the skies above the base were truly silent, safe. And though Michael Hayes was gone, his legacy lived on, not just in machines, but in the hearts of those he had inspired. The man they once mocked as a homeless nobody had become the silent guardian of a future he saved with nothing but courage, code, and belief. The impossible had been done, again.